Hey, world history students. All right, go ahead and pull up your notes. Uh, in this little lesson, we're going to do Hitler and Nazi Germany. So that should be your third section of your notes. Go ahead and scroll down to those if you have not done so already. All right, so if you've been following along in the World Wars docuseries shows that we've been watching, you've been seeing a lot about Hitler and his time through World War One, and then his growth and take over the Nazi Party, leading to his uh, steps and pretty quick rise to take over Germany altogether. So we're going to talk about some of that. So Adolf Hitler developed his basic ideas while in Vienna. And at the core of his ideas was racism, especially anti Semitism. So we're going to talk about what is anti-Semitism. This is where I would ask you guys what you think it is and take some of your guesses. Um, if you're not sure, anti-Semitism is discrimination against Jewish people specifically. Now, he was racist in a lot of different ways, but especially anti-Semitic, so especially against Jewish people. By 1921, Hitler took control of a right wing nationalist party known as the Nazis for short. Now, again, 1921, this is well before World War II, but just there after World War One. Speaking of, I've got a plane flying overhead right now. Hopefully, it's an early World War One plane and not going to bomb me, rather than Hitler's not attempt, but successful bombing of London in World War II. We'll talk about that later. So while he was in jail in 1923, pardon me, while in jail in 1923, he wrote Mein Kampf, translated to My Struggle. Now, you can talk about the irony of uh, this white German guy and his struggle, but it outlines his racist beliefs and thoughts generally about how much better the Aryan race, the German people, are. By 1932, so we're not jumping ahead 10 years or so, the Nazis had become the largest party in the German Reichstag, or parliament. So in our country, we don't have a parliament, we have a Congress, but it's very similar. So these are representatives who represent the people of the country in the government. They're legislators. And the Nazi Party didn't have a majority, but they were the largest group. So you think Republicans and Democrats. Well, in Germany, they had more than just those two parties like we have. They had a handful of parties, Nazis being one of them. And Nazis by 1932 became the largest of those parties in Congress on their parliament. Hitler's appeals to the national pride struck an emotional chord with his listeners. So remember, Germany was in a low point after World War One. They're being punished by the rest of Europe and demeaned, really. They've lost a lot of their power. And so this guy coming in talking about how great German people are and how we are uniquely special, that appealed to a lot of people who were sick of hearing how bad they were. So the right wing elites of Germany began to look at Hitler for leadership. And then with his Enabling Act, Hitler became a dictator appointed by parliament. So Hitler, step by step, kept taking these steps to becoming more and more powerful within the German government. He started off just being the party leader of a party, not even a majority party, but a party in Germany, and then just continued to work his way to get more and more power through that party, then through the government. Then people kept trying to appease him because he started arousing more support throughout the country and getting people really excited to be a part of his movement. So to appease him and to appease the German people, the government kept taking these little steps to give him more and more power, to the point where he could just eventually name himself the dictator and have basically absolute power later on. So Hitler's goal was to develop an Aryan racial state that would dominate the world. So he wanted essentially to take over the world with his blue-eyed, blonde-haired, German ancestry people, because he believed they were the best. They're the only ones who deserved to be the top of society, and he was going to do whatever he can to ensure that that was the case everywhere. So Nazis thought the Germans would create an empire like ancient Rome. So you think back to your middle school social studies and you're learning about ancient Rome and how big their empire became. That's what Germans wanted and thought that they could create. The Nazi state used terror and repression to coerce opponents. So anyone who was against the Nazis within Germany, not just outside of Germany, but within Germany, they would force them into siding with them, either by threatening them or forcing them to. At one point, while you guys were watching the Worlds, you might have seen where Hitler literally had his people go out and kill his political opponents. We're talking like 100 people that they went out and killed in the middle of the night, that anyone that was opposed to him. Then a massive rearmament program solved Germany's unemployment program. So remember, after World War I, Germany was forced to demilitarize and get rid of all of their military, or at least most of it. Well, when Hitler got in power, he starts building up that military again. And that meant more jobs for people who were in the military, but also more factory jobs for the people who are now going to be working to create those arms or those weapons. Churches and schools were brought under the control of the Nazi regime. So there was really no element that the Nazi Party didn't have some sort of control over. So not just the political system and the government, but also your schools, and what you were learning was going to be dictated by the Nazi Party. When you went to church and you were worshiping, that was going to be determined by the Nazi ideology. So this Nazi ideology of anti-Semitism and racism is not just going to be influencing their followers, but really anyone in Germany is going to be affected by this, because how many people go to church and how many people go to school and are now going to be forced to be learning about this. Now, women played an important role as the bearers of the Aryan children. They were considered very important because they were like literally and figuratively the mothers of this new Aryan world that they were expected to create and hoping to create. Once fully in power, the Nazis translated these anti-Semitic ideas, this anti-Jewish ideas, into anti-Semitic policy. So they started taking these ideas they had and literally started putting them into practice through the government. New racial laws were enacted in September 1935. The Nuremberg laws, being probably the most famous of those, excluded all Jews from German citizenship. So it didn't matter if your family had lived there for 100 years and you were from Germany yourself. You no longer had citizenship if you were Jewish. You were now required to wear a symbol, a Star of David, on you at all times, so everyone knew that you were Jewish, which you can imagine, as society is growing more and more anti-Semitic, anti-Jewish, probably not a great feeling to be identified as Jewish walking around town. And then at the height of all of this, on November 9th, 1938, the Kristallnacht occurred, a destructive rampage against the Jews. So people went through the cities one night and destroyed all Jewish property, stole and vandalized, hurting Jewish people. But any business, anything that was Jewish related or owned, they would essentially destroy or steal. All right, we're going to stop there for today. Such a positive note to end on. But this kind of sets the idea of what's going on within Germany, this growth of the Nazi ideas, putting into practice in Nazi Germany. And you can imagine if this is what's going on in Germany, how this is going to be as Germany expands and starts taking over more and more Europe, and how they're going to start treating the people of other lands. All right. I hope you guys are doing well, and I will talk to you soon.